You need to make the call right now.
I bought a Snickers bar and it was supposed to be packed with peanuts. It wasn't. It only had a lot of peanuts. Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe got me $2.36.
It was really hot outside, so I went to the beach and I burned the bottom of my feet. There were no signs anywhere to warn me of the hot sand. Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe got the Parks Department to pay me $10. That's $1 for every toe.
I bought an ice cream sundae on my way home from work. 45 minutes later, it was all melted. Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe got me $5.13.
Hello, I'm Fred Dewey. Have you been inconvenienced through no fault of your own? Have you received a very minor injury due to someone else's negligence? Call us now at 1-934-386-6639. That number again, just dial 1. We get money.
I ordered a cheeseburger from McDonald's and I didn't get any cheese. Even a big company like that didn't scare my lawyers. They got me a settlement of nearly $23. Thanks, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
I'm Robin Cheatham. If you haven't been lucky enough to have been killed, maimed, or severely injured due to someone else's fault, call us now. We can help. We've been handling minor inconvenience and trifling injury cases for more than 20 years. We have the knowledge and expertise to get you every penny you deserve.
My mommy said she would give me a treat if I cleaned my room. Well, I did, and she gave me kale chips. Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe made my mommy give me $2. I have them on speed dial now.
Splinters, stubbed toes, bad scrapes. Nothing is too trivial for Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
We take the cases no other lawyers will touch, and we've got our clients tens of dollars. How do we do it? Volume. Call us now.
Make the call. 1-934-386-6639. Just dial 1. We get money.
Warning. The Long in the Boot podcast contains sarcasm, irony, logic, and occasional facts. Opinions expressed by guests of Long in the Boot are those of the individual and do not reflect the opinions of any corporate or government entity. Due to the use of freedom of expression and those other pesky God-given rights, adult supervision is recommended. Please listen thoughtfully. And hello, everybody. Welcome to the Long in the Boot podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Long, coming to you from the heel of the boot, otherwise known as Southwest Louisiana. We've got a pretty good show lined up today, I do believe, and I'm joined with by a special guest host, Mr. Bryant Hebbets. How you doing, Mr. Bryant Hebbets?
Oh, I'm living the dream, Glenn.
So Bryant is a school teacher as well, and I don't mean to people my podcast with school teachers all the time, but hey, you know, that's how it works.
We have some time off this time of year.
We've had an extended period of time.
A wee bit.
And quick question. Do you know what day it is?
Not really.
Yeah, I know. That's one of the big problems with this whole pandemic thing. And of course, the pandemic thing is currently raging again.
Especially in this region.
Yes.
The heel of the boot is covered in muck.
Apparently, yeah, it's covered in muck and people are fighting over masks and whether or not to wear one. When I go out, I've started wearing a mask, not so much for any other reason other than I don't want to be hassled if I'm not wearing a mask. And if I am wearing a mask and somebody hassles me, well, then I've just ran into a butthole for the day. And, you know, I can live with that. It happens.
How dare you try to save someone's life?
Well, I don't know if I'm trying to save anybody's life so much. I don't like conflict. I don't want to have to deal with anybody who's going to make a scene. I've seen so many video clips lately of people freaking out.
They really go off.
Yes, they do. And in fact, we were just talking a minute ago about a Louisiana state representative whose name really doesn't even matter. And he has a commercial thing on his Facebook page. He attacked a mask by chopping it up with a chainsaw and also burning it with a blowtorch. So
that was excessive.
Well, I thought so. He said masks aren't bad, but mask mandates are.
Yeah, you would expect some of that torching and chainsawing to go for some sort of government document instead of the poor little mask. It can't even stop a virus.
I know. How can a mask stop a virus if it can't even stop a chainsaw?
If you can dodge a chainsaw, you can dodge a virus.
That's right. And so he did that. And I've seen so much, and now it's just, please wear a mask, please wear a mask. And of course, the other big thing, both of us being teachers, is we're all set for school to start, except nobody's really sure of what's going to happen.
No one is even close to knowing. All I'm seeing a bunch of people jumping ship. I'm seeing stuff all over social media like, we're going to homeschool. It's like, oof.
Oh, if they offered me early retirement today,
Take it.
I'd probably take
it. I'm too far gone.
In fact, I'm impressed by the administrators who could retire and don't. They are amazing. They're heroes.
Yeah, they're playing the violin on the Titanic is what they're doing.
Well, I think that they have dedication. You got to admit that's dedication, because almost anybody who's an administrator generally is older, and the kids are going to be fine. Most of them, if they happen to get exposed to COVID, they're going to be like sniffles and ready to go.
Yeah,
and then we have to. And of course, the guidelines now, if you have a cough, you need to go home for 2 weeks.
Oof.
Well, 2 weeks. I'm into short-term disability then. I don't know if I can.
I don't have the sick days for that.
And I cough all the time.
I've been coughing at least since October.
And they said, if you have the sniffles, you might have to go home. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be a real problem, because I have allergies so bad.
I'm over 3 decades of allergy season. That's me.
Well, most of the schools are dusty too. I've never been in a school
gross.
yet that was, spotless. I don't think they can keep them spotless, really.
They have occasional spots.
Occasional. And then, of course, we got to deal about the kids and how they're going to be masked up. And they're already coming up with mask uniforms. Have you seen the guidelines now? They have to be a solid color. I'm like, oh, come on. Can't we just let them have a little freedom?
Yeah, I can't have like a Rick and Morty mask. Ooh.
No. Oh, that would, no. There's probably somebody that would frown upon
It's
that.
too controversial.
And we can't have controversy.
Controversy has no place in the secondary school system.
Well, speaking of controversy, last week I and Deb, we talked about statue destruction and the removal of General Middleton's name from LSU, from the LSU library. And then this week, in the past week or past couple of weeks, since we're doing these once a fortnight, the idea of cancel culture has come up over and over again. And cancel culture now, and in fact, the word itself, or the pair of words itself, are kind of new. We actually had cancel culture for a long time. We just didn't have a name for it.
Yeah, it wasn't nice and pretty labeled.
It seems like anybody can run afoul of cancel culture today. I know Drew Brees, they tried to get him.
I think John Wayne got it today.
They're removing his name from the airport.
At USC, they're taking away the John Wayne exhibit because he said some racist things back in the Gap.
Yeah, it was actually an interview with Playboy.
Oh,
I don't want to,
reputable periodical.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I read that interview back in the day.
It's for the articles.
Oh yeah, it was for the articles. Actually, it was a gentleman in our neighborhood who was kindly enough to sell Playboys to slightly underage youth.
That's good.
And
like
I saw
an old-timey paper boy.
I saw the interview with John Wayne, and John Wayne at that time, of course, was still a beloved hero of screen.
Yeah.
And I read the interview, and yeah, it was actually, even to my young ears, it was kind of like, ooh, because he was saying some things that I'm not sure were politically correct at the time he said them. I don't even know if there was a term for it yet.
Yeah, he seemed to really not have been one to give much of a crap when it comes to that sort of thing.
Yeah, what I like about it though, with the getting rid of John Wayne's name, is it's not his name.
No, not even close. No one knows his name. They don't ever talk about Marion Morrison.
Marion.
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
Marion. Yeah,
you can't be a tough cowboy with a name like Marion.
Well, I think he got his butt whooped a lot when he was a kid because he was a skinny little dude too.
Yeah.
So he's like, your name is Marion and you're skinny. Yeah, we're gonna hit you now. That's pretty much how he lived.
His parents, they cursed him. But anyway, so John Wayne is gone now, and are they going to chip his star off the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Maybe
they're going to have to chip a lot.
There's
of
a lot of
stars. We're going to start doing that. We are getting wide range deletions.
Doing a callback to the last podcast, I'm starting to come around to the idea that we should just stop naming things after people.
Well, yeah.
Since we're all flawed, and apparently no one's allowed to be flawed anymore, that's what cancel culture really is all about. You've got people now where they are actively trying to remove them from everything because of something they may have said or did 20 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah, they're not paying a fine anymore. They're being wiped from the matrix. Like, they're gone.
Yeah. And it's not new. That was the one thing that really, as we researched this, I started going back and I kept finding incidents of people being sort of removed from the mainstream of society, or from whatever this is that we have in America, where it's a combination of both media and society. I went all the way back and I decided, well, I won't go any further than 1900. 1900 is where I'm going to cut it off. Although I'm sure there were people even before. And back then, of course, there was no social media. People were canceled by just the market itself. People made a decision not to endorse or not to give money to or whatever.
And they just fizzle away into obscurity.
And usually cancel culture in the old days was an organization usually made it happen. It wasn't that the public at large canceled somebody. Mm-hmm. It was that some organization or some media group
that had a lot of pull.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, they decided, well, this person is no more. We're going to get rid of this person altogether. And so just a few examples from today that we know about already. Cancel culture has affected a lot of people. John Wayne is a perfect example. Jimmy Kimmel, of course, they're trying to get rid of him because of a couple of sketches he did. One of them on the radio. And I actually saw a thing where somebody was complaining because he wore blackface
in a radio station.
Doing an imitation of one of the NBA players. I don't know which one. And of course, that's a no-no now. At the time he did it, nobody actually cared.
No.
And it's been done numerous times. I even saw people were upset about the Golden Girls supposedly doing blackface.
Yeah, they had like facial masks on or something like that.
Unmasks. And so there's a lot of examples of this happening now, and it doesn't take much for somebody to get into a lot of trouble. And there are people who I think maybe take active pleasure in causing damage to people now.
They like it. They're like Uber trolls.
And one of the things, a lot of my friends, I have a lot of friends on both sides of the fence when it comes to conservatism versus progressivism or liberalism, whatever you want to call it these days. I personally place myself right on that fence as much as possible. Yeah, exactly. And what I find funny is conservatives think that liberals are the only ones that do cancel culture. Mm-hmm. Liberals think that conservatives are the only ones who do cancel culture. And the fact is, it's on both sides of society. Both sides have used it at different times. But I'm going to go back all the way to the very first one that I could really pull up that was interesting. And for some of you who've heard this story before, I'm sure, and it was the Black Sox scandal of 1919. The Black Sox, of course, were not a team. The Chicago White Sox were. And the Chicago White Sox were accused of throwing the 1919 World Series against the Cincinnati Reds for, get this, money.
Lots of money.
$5,000 a person.
That's a hefty sum of 1919 money.
Yes, you could buy a lot with $5,000. And I'm not going to get into like real super specific details about it, but the whole thing was arranged by a gambling syndicate who was led by Arnold Rothstein, or Rothstein, depending on Stein, whatever.
Steen.
But his idea was to fix the World Series, and then they could make, lots of money. And some of the players were willing to do it. And one of the things you might think, well, they were professional athletes. Yeah, but baseball players in 1919 made diddly squat.
Yeah, it's not like professional athletes now.
Yeah, you can't buy a lot with diddly squat.
Not really.
They had to pay.
Tried.
Well, they had to pay for cleaning their own uniforms.
Oh my God.
Which meant there were a lot of dirty uniforms on a ball field.
It wasn't quite the pedestal that the professional athletes have been placed on.
No, absolutely not. They were prized by the people. People loved baseball. Baseball was king in 1919. There was no sport like it, nothing close. Everybody went to baseball games. Everybody followed baseball. And in fact, once the radio was invented, baseball was everywhere. You couldn't get away from it. And it was clean. Everybody thought for some reason that it was a clean sport, which it never really was. The players were they were either farm boys who were really good at baseball, or they were immigrants who had come in and learned baseball and become very, very good at it.
Yeah, those poor city people playing stickball out in the gutters.
So were they actually guilty of throwing the World Series? Well, the answer is yes. They did it. But the really weird thing is they were so beloved that the jury, when everybody was tried, pretty much said, they didn't do it. They didn't do it.
It's baseball.
It's
they
baseball.
Didn't do nothing.
And they really thought they had managed to do it. One player in particular who's been portrayed in a lot of different things, especially in The Field of Dreams, the Kevin Costner movie, was Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Shoeless Joe is a legend.
Yeah. Say it ain't so, Joe. And which, by the way, was never said by anybody. As I was doing research, that was made up by a newspaper, all of it. But he didn't take the money, supposedly. But it turns out that several of the players said, well, he did take the money because it was just laying on the bed and everybody was leaving the hotel room and they weren't going to take it. And Shoeless Joe Jackson supposedly just gathered up the money and put it in a shoebox.
Yeah.
Now, what happened to that $5,000? Who knows? There's no information. I looked all over the place, but he swears he didn't take the money. So he gathered the money, put it in a shoebox, and then who knows? Maybe he donated it to a church. I don't know.
Yeah, he left it on a doorstep of a convent.
But he swears also that he did not throw the game, that he played his very best. And if you look at the statistics from the game, he played like a champ. Shoeless Joe Jackson played flawlessly. He had an amazing game.
What if he's so good that he can cause other people to throw a game while still looking awesome himself?
Well, yeah, right.
Maybe that's what happened.
Well, you know, in the movie 8 Men Out, they portrayed that idea that he almost blew it for everybody because he was playing so well that he managed to win a game. And they were supposed to lose. Supposedly, the story goes they were supposed to blow it in 4. There's like supposed to be 4 straight, and that didn't happen.
No.
And it was supposedly Shoeless Joe Jackson's fault. So I don't know. It's there's so much information. It's so sketchy. You know, we're talking 100 years ago now.
Yeah. And that's when like newspapers, it wasn't now to where it was like a slanted thing. So people were grabbing out fake news. This was like actual fake news where they could completely change everything.
Oh,
they wanted to, so they could sell their newspapers.
Oh, absolutely. Yellow journalism
was
the best because, yeah, it was like the rules were whatever you wanted to print, go for it. If it sells papers, make it happen.
It sells papers. If it starts wars, whatever.
And that often did. But one of the problems from this scandal was the owners of the baseball teams were worried that they would start losing money, that fans would turn away from the sport because it was quote unquote crooked. And so they created a new thing called the Commissioner of Baseball. And when they were scouting around for a new commissioner, they picked one of the scariest looking individuals. And you can get online and find a picture of this guy and you will be blown away by his demeanor just in a black and white picture. He's terrifying.
Wow.
He sort of looks like, you know, that there's a famous old picture from pre-Civil War picture of John Brown.
Yes.
Well,
when he has no beard or when he has the beard?
When he has no beard.
No beard and he's like swearing in.
Yeah.
He's got his hand on a Bible or something like that. I've seen
And he looks intimidating.
Very.
Well, Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who was appointed the first commissioner of baseball, he was a judge. And he was as scary as anybody you could ever see. And he was also incorruptible. Apparently, he tolerated no BS from anybody ever. And even though the players were found not guilty, he decided to step in. And even though they were acquitted, he banned all of the players from baseball forever.
Wow.
Just ended it.
Because they sullied the good name of the sport.
That's right. They all kept trying to get themselves reinstated. Landis went a little bit further, though. At that time in the United States, there were what they call barnstorming teams. And these were teams that would play in the off season, or they were players who couldn't quite make it to the majors, and they would form their own semi-pro teams and go out and play each other. He banned them from that.
Wow.
He also said any player from Major League Baseball who played a game with one of these guys would be banned forever.
Oh, so it's contagious.
Exactly. And it went so far that the Baseball Commission told cities, look, if one of your players plays with one of these banned players, your city will lose its ability to have a baseball team. So, I mean, this wasn't just banning some players. This was a complete canceling of their careers.
Yeah, they were gone.
They were done.
You have to go sell insurance somewhere.
Yeah. And there wasn't, you couldn't go to Japan and play baseball at that time. They were busy getting ready to take over China.
Yeah.
And baseball really wasn't in their wheelhouse yet. But don't worry, it's coming. They're eventually going to get their baseball. But so that was the first really big canceling thing I saw. And people were shocked at the time. But very quickly, the society just accepted it that, well, they were banned and they were shunned. They were done. And they kind of just disappear from history. And today they're just known as the Black Sox. And really not much was heard from them after that. They were interviewed from time to time. Shoeless Joe Jackson lived for decades after all of this because he was a young man when he got banished.
Yeah.
And he denied it to his dying day that he had nothing to do with throwing the game. And there is no question, though, that the leaders of that team absolutely took the money and threw the game. They should have won that World Series. And apparently Rothstein made a lot of money. And of course, did whatever he did after that, which I would assume would be more illegal things.
Yeah, he's pretty famous for being quite a gambler.
But I never considered the idea of those players being canceled, that you're not going to have your name in the paper hardly at all anymore, if ever. And if it is, it's going to be because of something bad.
Yeah, I mean, usually, and if you do something like that, you understand, okay, you're going to lose your job. You might have to pay a hefty fine, but they're gone.
The new commissioner said, that's it. They're done. Goodbye.
Forever.
Canceled.
Forever.
And so that was the first example I found. But that's not the only one I found. I found one that's similar, but it took place, further west.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really sad story.
The freaking saddest.
It's the story of Fatty Arbuckle. And the fact that some of you right now are going, who?
Yeah.
Proves how well it worked.
Who? Huh?
Fatty who? By the way, Fatty Arbuckle was what he was called. So I'm not being derogatory towards.
That was his nickname, like in elementary school.
He didn't like it though.
Not really. No.
He was another one that came just really kind of almost the same time, but a little bit later. And he was canceled in much the same way for wholly different reasons though. So we want to talk about Fatty. Have you ever watched any of his movies? They're really kind of hard to find.
Yeah, they canceled him pretty thoroughly. I've seen one. It was from 1918 called The Cook, and Buster Keaton's in that one. And it's like almost all those silent movies. And I'm not your normal 33-year-old. I watch a lot of those. I'm a fan. But
actually, weirdly enough, I have a clip from that movie. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Here we go. And there you go. Yeah, it's a silent movie, so but yeah, Buster Keaton, he mentored Buster Keaton.
And Chaplin,
which is stunning. I didn't even know that. And I've seen some clips from movies. I saw a clip of a movie he did at Coney Island, where he's on a boat flume going down, and it's dangerous as can be.
Yeah,
he flies out.
Then they didn't have stuntmen.
He flies out of that boat like just across the water. And I'm like, how did he not get hurt? But everything I read said he was super athletic. That he was.
I mean, that's how he got his start in the first place. He was a little kid, and he would sing in these vaudeville clubs and stuff like that. And it was one of those that if you were doing too bad or the audience wasn't clapping enough, a big giant crook is going to come out and hook you off the stage. And he was dancing around, and they just needed him to get off because it was time for the next guy. So they're going to crook him, and he just swan dives into the orchestra pit and like hops up. He's a little fat 12-year-old kid, and he's just athletic as all get out.
Yeah, and I read a few people who talked about him later who were his dance partners in various movies and stuff, and they talk about how light he was on his feet, that he could dance like a maniac, and he was a big guy.
He was big. I mean, he wasn't overly tall, but he was pushing 300, and he was just a large man.
He was the star, and that's one of the things that kind of shows you how well he was canceled. Most people have heard of, now the Marx Brothers came a little later, obviously with sound, but most people have heard of Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton and even Harold Lloyd, all silent stars that are fairly well known. Fatty Arbuckle's name a lot of times might be known, but it's usually for the wrong reason.
Yes. Anyway, think of Fatty Arbuckle. He's the dirty man.
Yeah, he always gets it. And when I was even young and I'd heard about Fatty Arbuckle, one of the first things I ever heard associated with his name was, he murdered a girl.
Yeah, he murdered that chick. Again, it's like not a clean murder either.
Yeah, and I just kind of, I was young, I didn't care, and I blew it off. But as I was doing research for the podcast, I was like, oh my Lord, this guy got railroaded bad. But before we get into how badly he was railroaded, let me give you an idea of how well loved he was by not only America, but the studios. 1920, Paramount Pictures signed him to a contract for $14,000, which, that sounds like pretty good money in 1919. It's about $180,000 today. Not bad.
No, not bad.
Later, very shortly later, he was offered $3 million on a contract, which is worth about $50 million today. And no, that was astronomically crazy. Nobody was even close to that kind of
He
money.
was by far the highest paid actor in Hollywood.
No question. He was incredibly generous to his friends. He made sure that they all got work. Even Bob Hope was found or discovered by Fatty Arbuckle. And so he was as loved as any person could be up until 1921.
Oh, man.
Arbuckle was filming as usual. He was always working. Back in the silent film era, people worked constantly. There were no real breaks. And he went to a hotel in San Francisco with a couple of his friends. I love the name, by the way. One of his friends, you got Lowell Sherman and Fred Fishback.
Fishback.
Good old Fishback. They checked into a 3-room suite. So you had a bedroom on one side, a bedroom on another side, and then you had a middle room that was larger where they could have people over. That was the party room.
Yeah, and these rooms were huge, like big, high ceilings and ornate decorations everywhere. This was top of the line.
This was, as top of the line as you can possibly get. This was the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, and they had the party room. And, well, since it's 3 guys having a party, you need a couple of things. One of the things you got to have is women. You got to invite some girls. You know, it'd be boring if it's just 3 guys,
Just hanging out.
And, of course, in San Francisco as well as Hollywood, finding women who would like to come and party with Hollywood stars, especially a star like Fatty Arbuckle, not a real problem.
Nope.
They could easily be found. The other thing you needed to have was liquor. Liquor was a little bit more problematic because prohibition was in effect.
Yes.
So you couldn't just go down to the store and buy liquor. You had to go to meet, somebody, knock on the door.
Sort of a backroom deal.
Yeah. And it's like, what do you got? What do you need? and you could get your prohibition liquor, which was always, from what I understand, the highest quality.
Highest quality, 100% safe.
So everything was set up. They had their girls coming, they had the booze, and everything seemed fine. And 2 women whose names will come up again, but one woman, Virginia Rapp, and the other woman, a lady named Bambina Delmont. Her middle name's Maud, and so I'm going to refer to her as Maud Delmont because Bambina sounds silly.
She was the great Bambina.
More singles than any other woman in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
They were both there. Delmont was known in Hollywood circles as a woman who could acquire guests for parties for famous and rich men. That's what she was known for. She was an actress as well, but she had a moonlight gig acquiring guests for parties. And one of the guests that she invited was her friend Virginia Rapp. And the night of the party, apparently it was quite a party. Good times were being had by all. And Virginia Rapp was found very seriously ill in one of the bedrooms. And everything gets kind of hinky there when you start researching this, because it turns out that, and this is post-death, things were found out, she had a problem. She had a chronic condition, and liquor made it really bad. It's called cystitis. It's a liver disorder, and liquor irritates it dramatically, especially if the liquor is not high quality, which, again, wasn't a problem because prohibition was on and all liquor was
Perfectly high quality certified stuff.
Oh, yeah.
No danger. No danger at all.
Completely 100% certified by Fred.
Yeah. Hey, is this gin? Yeah, sure it's gin.
Absolutely. Smell it.
Yeah, it smells like your bathtub. Whatever.
It smells like bathtub water and juniper.
Got some juniper juice.
Anyway, she had a real problem. And one of my favorite things that it said in one of the stories was she had developed a reputation for over imbibing at parties and then drunkenly tearing at her clothes from the resulting physical pain.
She ripped them to shreds and was shrieking like she was possessed by the devil himself.
Now, this wasn't like just one time.
This was a reputation that she had gotten. And even if she didn't drink a lot, it would do this to her. And she would just get into these weird stupors because of the pain.
And normally if you ply somebody with alcohol and their clothes come off, I suppose that could be okay, maybe.
This sounds scary.
But this sounds really, really terrifying.
This is awful.
She's tearing at her clothes in incredible pain. And then a week later, I guess she's doing it again.
Yes.
Interesting.
Until she dies.
And, then there you go. She collapses at the hotel. She's in horrible pain. The hotel doctor again,
We have hotel doctors in San Francisco in the 20s.
hotel doctor. And
Only the best.
yeah, again, just like the liquor, hotel doctors are always the highest
You
quality.
can swear by them.
He came in and said her symptoms were caused by intoxication because apparently she had been imbibing heavily, and he gave her morphine, which always is a good thing. You should take a derivative of heroin when you've been drinking heavily. That's what I say. Gets rid of the hangover.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Better than a Bloody Mary.
The thing went, the party went really bad, and she was in bad shape. At the hospital, when she finally went to the hospital, which actually didn't happen for a couple of days. She didn't actually go to a hospital for a couple of days.
No, they just had this hotel doctor come check in. I was like, "You dead?" And she was like, "No." Okay, cool. And you leave.
And he shot her up with morphine,
Morphine. Give you just more morphine, and that's it.
and then she went home.
And even Fatty is one of them that actually tried to get her taken care of. Like when she was freaking out at the party, he actually bought another hotel room and had the doctors move her into it so she could rest.
Yeah, he did everything I guess he should do.
I thought.
I'm guessing that they were worried about what might. The one thing that didn't happen is they didn't call the law.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you've got a bunch of illegal liquor,
Probably don't want coppers.
and I assume if you have people at a party, there's going to be illegal narcotics as well.
Probably.
Because it's a Hollywood party. I'm not making any accusations,
No judgment.
and but probably. Anyway, they didn't call it the law. Well, she goes home and collapses, and she's in bad shape. She's taken to the hospital by Maud Delmont, who tells the doctor that Arbuckle had raped her.
Yeah, and crushed her with his girth.
Yeah, and there was no indication whatsoever prior to that accusation of any of that. But Maud Delmont, I think, was smelling some money. I think that's really what was going on.
I'm pretty sure they actually had a quote from her that said, "Hey, I have a way that we can get some money off of Arbuckle."
Yeah, it was I think to her lawyer maybe.
Yeah, and this was pretty fresh off of that $3 million contract offer. Like this dude was in the dough.
Everybody knew it too.
Oh,
He was stinking rich, and she saw the mark. And so she accused him of rape. The doctor who examined Rapp, this is going to be tough. The doctor who examined Rapp found no evidence of rape whatsoever. You see what I mean?
Not even any violence. Like,
Yeah, nothing. She had a ruptured bladder. That's what she was actually dying from, and she was dying from peritonitis. Delmont, then the police were called. After she made the accusation of rap rape. They called the police, and the police concluded, and I love this, the impact of Arbuckle's overweight body lying on top of Rapp caused her bladder to rupture.
yes, that happens all the time.
That's why large people can't, engage in any type of activity of a sexual nature because they rupture bladders.
Popping them like water balloons.
Yep. It's a well-known fact, ladies and gentlemen.
It's an epidemic.
At a later press conference, Rapp's manager, Al Semnacker, these sound like really, really.
None of this was true.
Yeah, I know. That just sounds like a made-up name.
It's all made up.
Accused Arbuckle of using a piece of ice on Rapp that caused her injuries. That's weird.
Yeah. And then the other story was that when she was freaking out, like other people who were at the party said that Arbuckle was actually rubbing a piece of ice on her abdomen because she was burning up in her fever, tearing at her clothes because she was freaking out.
Arbuckle said in one interview he thought it was her appendix. He thought her appendix was rupturing, and that's what he was
her to
worried
get
about.
hot and super.
So he was rubbing her stomach with ice. Later, the newspapers, being the newspapers of this era, came up with that a Coca-Cola bottle or champagne bottle was in fact responsible for the damage to Ms. Rapp. Anyway, so enough about all of that. Just know that he was accused of killing a woman in some fashion, but the big story always, and this is what I heard growing up, was that it was his weight.
Yep.
That he was just so big that
manhandled her like a beast and crushed her.
And so that was the stage for this. And one more thing real quick. The DA was looking to make some points. The DA, is an elected official, and well, this was the primo case. There was no bigger case in America. It was front page news pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And Arbuckle goes to trial, and all of the details, all of the gritty details are there. And Arbuckle had a great lawyer, Attorney McNabb.
That sounds like a TV show.
It does. I like that. McNabb and Sons, in color. McNabb, though, understood the science, and he called in all kinds of pathology experts, coroners, all kinds of things. They examined the body and said there was no evidence of any of the things he had been accused of. And the jury came back after 44 hours with a 10-2 not guilty verdict. But because 10-2 isn't 12-0,
Nope.
the judge declared a mistrial. And so the DA might have let the case go at that point. You know, that's what a solid DA probably would have looked at that and said, man, there's no way we're going to convict him, so let's just let it go. But no, you go back to it again.
This one was hungry.
And and in the second trial, McNabb made a mistake. He decided not to have Arbuckle testify like he did the first time. And in fact, McNabb put up very little defense in the second trial, thinking, well, we've got this now.
Yeah.
And this time the jury came back with I think it was a 9-3 guilty verdict.
Oh, Lord.
But again, not 12-0. So we know what that means.
Reasonable doubt. Mistrial.
So now we're set for a third trial. And sure enough, the DA is going to follow through and give us a third trial. And in this trial, McNabb went back to his first trial strategy and they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
He left no stone unturned. And McNabb did it. He got him acquitted. When the jury came back in 6 minutes.
Yeah. How much deliberation? You do it? Nope. Cool.
What about you? No. 6 minutes. They didn't even have time to smoke a cigarette.
No.
Maybe just went out and go to the bathroom, come back in. They came out and they had written a statement.
Yeah, that's what I think. 4 of their 6 minutes was spent drafting a statement.
for Fatty Arbuckle. I'm just going to read part of it because I think it's worth reading. Acquittal is not enough for Roscoe Arbuckle. I like that. Roscoe instead of Fatty. We feel that a great injustice has been done to him. We feel also that it was only our plain duty to give him his exoneration under the evidence, for there was not the slightest proof to connect him in any way with the commission of a crime.
Not even the slightest proof. The only thing that the DA had going for him was a lady who was not in the room when it happened and was lying.
Right. And who was well known as a procurer of guests for Hollywood stars.
She was sort of like a party planner.
By the way, while this was going on, do you know what Maud Delmont was doing? Touring the United States as the woman who fingered, probably bad choice words, Fatty Arbuckle.
At least she didn't champagne bottle him.
Yes, exactly. She was actually making money as a road show, saying, "I'm the woman who caught him for raping."
Oh,
my
she
friend."
had it. It was her claim to fame. That was her publicity because she'd never really even been in movies before this, but now everyone knew who she was.
Yep, and she was famous, and she was famous because of this. And you'd think, well, he was exonerated, everything's good, no problem at all.
Wrong.
How was he canceled? Well, he was canceled, and that's the really weird thing. And in much like baseball, a new organization had been set up in Hollywood. Hollywood had a reputation as seedy and dirty and corrupt, not like now.
No, everything's great in Hollywood now.
But in the 1920s, not so much. There were no rules for movies then, by the way.
No, you could do whatever you wanted.
Yes. And in fact, every kind of thing you could think of, you could find in movies prior to the 1920s. One of my favorites is the movie Tarzan, the original Tarzan, not the ones later, but the very first Tarzan movie that they made with sound, not the silent movie. There's actually nudity in that. And it's there. I mean, you can't, it's just, it's what Jane is wearing. And when they saw it, when they created the new commission, they had to reshoot parts of that movie so that they could take that out. And that was the beginning of Hollywood creating what became known as the MPPA or MPAA or whatever, but the people who rate movies.
Yeah.
And it was originally known as the Hays Commission.
Freaking Hays Commission, man.
Yeah, Will Hays. He was appointed as the head of this newly formed Motion Pictures Producers and Distributors of America. And what they were was a censor board. And they came up with a list of things you could not have in movies. And there was a huge list. And these are the people who gave us the separate beds for married couples in movies.
Yeah.
You always had to have one foot on the floor if you were laying in a bed, a man and a woman. somebody had to have a foot on the floor
Yeah.
because that way nothing weird could happen because no one's ever done that. So that they were created. Well, Hayes came in, and one of the first things he did is he cited Arbuckle as a horrible example of morals in Hollywood.
Oh yeah, he became the poster boy for this nasty, corrupt, entitled, like, hey, I'm so important I can do whatever I want.
And everything I've read from people who knew Fatty Arbuckle said he was the most honorable and really moral guy you could find. I mean, he lived a lifestyle that was pretty amazing for 1919. But as far as treating people decently, you can't find anybody saying anything bad about
Just
him.
a gentle, sweet guy. And the guys that knew him, like Chaplin, he got interviewed, and Chaplin was like, Arbuckle never hurt a fly. He was like a teacher, and he was just like a jolly man who just wanted to make people laugh. That didn't get printed in any newspapers.
No, it's not going to sell any newspapers. Arbuckle's a regular guy. He's a good guy. That's not going to sell a paper.
Wrong.
But Arbuckle squashed a woman and killed her. Well, that's
sensational.
That is, yeah. And so Hayes completely banned him from making any movies or being involved in movies in any way. Well, at the time he made the decision, for life.
Yeah.
So boom, canceled.
Yeah. And the ones that he'd already made didn't get shown. Even like his friends, like Grauman's Theater, the Chinese theater and the Egyptian theater, all those. He was one of Arbuckle's closest friends. And with that same weekend where the charges first got brought, pulled all of Fatty's movies. And he had like 5 or 6 in theaters at that time.
Yeah.
Pulled them all.
Fatty's movies were everywhere. Dozens of them were running at the same time at like Coney Island. You could go in and watch them. The really amazing thing is that not only that, but Hayes also made it so that theaters that showed one of his movies could lose their ability to get movies later. So much like the baseball thing.
Yes, you see similar stuff, and it's for the similar thing. You take one of America's pastimes, and you're selling its good name. You're making it, people think that we have this corrupt, nasty culture, when that is not the case. We're a shining beacon for the world.
Yeah, and
you corrupt it, you're canceled.
Yeah, even if it's not true.
Not even close.
So Fatty Arbuckle was canceled. He was done. And now Arbuckle worked to get his name cleared. He did eventually get the ban lifted, but by then the damage was done.
Yeah,
the public,
anyone knew him.
Well, the public by that point knew him as the guy who killed a girl because of his weight.
Yeah.
And the truth didn't matter, which is often the case with these canceling cases. Truth seems to be lost in the shuffle. And the only thing people care about is the lurid details of some of this stuff. And Fatty was canceled not only by the Hayes Commission, but by America. They turned their back on him. And it's really sad. He did get work because of his friends. He had lots of friends. He did get work as a director for movies. I was reading that Buster Keaton actually created an agreement where he gave Arbuckle money from his own company.
Yeah.
Which says a lot about Buster Keaton as well. Buster Keaton was never happy about any of this. It was because he was really good friends with Arbuckle.
Again, none of that ever got into the newspapers.
Nope. And it took some digging to find some of this stuff out too.
Yeah.
And it's really a shame. Arbuckle, if you ever see an old movie with the name William B. Goodrich as on the credits, that's Arbuckle.
Yeah.
And also Will Be Good.
Will Be Good.
That's my favorite. And so he did get work, but he never came close to anything like he was making before all this happened.
But he was about to. He was about to turn it around in the 30s.
Yep. And 33, he was 46 years old.
46.
And he finally was going to make his big comeback.
He signed this big contract. Who was it with? Was it Warner Brothers?
Yeah, I believe it was Warner Brothers.
Big movie contract for Warner Brothers. And now we're into talkies age, so he's about to be able to actually speak.
And he could actually speak.
And he was a great singer.
Yeah.
And then the day he signed that contract, what happened that night?
Yeah.
Heart attack. He died.
Karma. Well, that's not really karma, though.
Not even karma. It's like proof that karma's crap. I mean, it's
anti-karma.
It's very anti-karmactic. It's
it's a shame. You know what else is weird about that? While we're on that subject, him dying after he finally gets a contract and he's ready to start his life over, is three other actors have tried to portray Fatty Arbuckle in the movies
to get his story across.
To get this story across, and those three actors are John Belushi, John Candy, and
Chris Farley.
Yeah.
It was going to be Chris Farley's first dramatic role. And as they were negotiating that movie, he died.
Yep. I know.
Belushi died.
It's the curse of Fatty Arbuckle, I guess.
That's awful.
So that's another story of cancel culture before it had a name. And it was, again, done by a commission, a group of people who decided that they needed to protect the United States of America. And of course, it goes hand in hand with a lot of things that were going on at that time. We had the first Red Scare at that time, and they were already starting to sniff around Hollywood for closeted communists.
Oh, there were communists everywhere.
And of course, one more little quick note on the Hollywood thing, and it was how Hollywood sort of had a problem too in the 60s, and really it was earlier than that, but the 50s and 60s especially. One of the things that Hollywood did, it was a fear thing though, of being canceled. Already that idea of losing everything was there, and Hollywood forced gay people to stay in the closet.
Yes.
The studios themselves, because they basically made that threat. If you come out or if you say anything or anybody finds out you're gay, you're done.
Well, yeah, because the studios controlled everything then.
Yes.
You weren't an
Everything.
actor that would just go get contracts. You were a studio player.
They made gay men get married,
Yes.
literally forced them to get married and to hide their gayness. Rock Hudson, Tab Hunter, Robert Reed, the Brady Bunch dad.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. I mean, I'm sure people knew in Hollywood, but these men were not allowed to live their lives the way they would have lived them because of this. Even people, and this is the one that really gets me, Liberace never came out as gay. He never.
He did everything else he possibly could other than say the words.
Which I have a newfound respect for Liberace.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that. He's like, all right, I'm not allowed to say I'm gay.
I will be as flamboyant
Watch
as
this.
possible. Flame on. Let's do it.
Yeah. And so, a little,
Oh, yeah. Good job,
Liberace.
Liberace. Attaboy.
and the other one was Paul Lynde. Paul Lynde, the center square for forever in Hollywood Squares. Same thing. He wasn't allowed to say it, but if you watch him, he's so flamboyant. He's letting the American know up front. And I think that was the beginning of people kind of standing up for themselves a little bit when it came to their personal lives. It was fear of the studios. And what were the studios afraid of? They were afraid of losing money.
Yes, because if you get the public against you, they're not going to go to the pictures anymore.
Right. And so that the idea of canceling, it was done in a different way, but it's still that same thing. And then we're moving into the 1980s. And this is when cancel culture, the idea of it, takes on a different look. And it starts to become more of what we know now as cancel culture. And it's the 1980s during what was known, strangely enough, as part of this whole moral crusade by the religious right, Jerry Falwell and the Moral Majority, a guy by the name of Donald Wildman. And their goal was to clean up the moral decadence that they saw in society. This is at the same time as another thing that was going on called the Satanic Panic, which were people freaking out about games like Dungeons and Dragons. And, and that's actually a topic all by itself that's really interesting. But the thing that I got when I was researching for cancel culture was the show Soap. It was a show, comedy, Soap, that had the very first gay character. And even before the show aired, the word got out that there was going to be a gay character on the show. And it lit a fire under these groups, especially Reverend Wildman, who got advertisers to say they would not advertise on ABC if this show came on the air.
Yeah.
So notice the shift. We're going to go after the sponsors instead of the company. If we can get the sponsors to pull their ads, then we can censor what America sees.
Yeah.
Now, in the long run, he attacked not only Soap, he wanted to remove Charlie's Angels, WKRP in Cincinnati. And you try to think back, and if you're watching those old shows, there's not a lot to complain about. I mean,
no, they're pretty tame by modern standards.
All in the Family, he wanted gone. I could see some things he might have problems with as a reverend. But again, society was changing. This was the 70s and the 80s. Things were changing radically. The 80s, though, is where this really took off, and applying pressure to brands, to sponsors of television shows. And most of the time, these efforts backfired, though. In fact, in the case of Soap, it was such a huge thing before it ever aired that when it finally aired, one of my favorite stories was they moved it from its normal time slot, and the first episode aired at 11 o'clock at night for a premiere show on ABC. They moved it to 11 p.m. Now, in the South, many ABC stations just didn't show it.
They didn't show it at all.
Right. the show got incredible ratings for an 11 o'clock show. And
It stirred up too much. People were too curious. You couldn't not watch it now.
Right.
They made that big of a deal. You got to see what's up.
And what's funny is I was young. I was in high school when Soap premiered, and the first gay character on television was played by Billy Crystal.
Hot dog.
Launched his career, but it was no big deal. It just really wasn't. Nobody cared. None of my friends cared. Now,
Did it corrupt you and your youth friends?
No, not at all. And in fact, everybody came to school, the next day. Did you watch it? Did you watch it? Did you watch it? And they're like, yeah, I watched it. What'd you think? It was funny. Yeah. Nobody cared.
That's usually what people look for in a sitcom.
And I've always thought that Billy Crystal, because that was the other thing. People were telling Billy Crystal, oh, you can't do this.
Your career's going to end.
Your career's going to end because they'll always want you to play a gay man. And
I've never seen him play a gay man other than in clips of that show that I've seen.
There you go. And so once again, not a big deal, but the cancel threat was there. It was all over the place. Another group that took this same tactic was Jesse Jackson, the Rainbow Coalition. They were doing it for civil rights purposes, but it was the same idea. You go after the sponsors and you can get action taken care of. So it's all part of this same movement. And finally, the big cancel of that period was South Africa, because apartheid was going on in South Africa. So the split society was, no bueno.
Yeah, it was like, this is, if y'all don't know what that is, it's almost like Jim Crow.
Yeah, it was. It was their version.
Similar setup.
Yeah, it was a slightly Dutchy version of Jim Crow, and in some ways actually worse.
Yeah.
And Nelson Mandela, of course, thrown in prison forever for that, where he did not die, by the way. That's one of the most believed things. For some reason, people think
they thought he died in jail.
There are so many people.
President?
I know
He was a president from jail.
I know. There's a lot of people that think he died. I don't know. It's one of those weird things that people believe.
Well, go ahead and cancel that thought.
Exactly. Sports teams across the world were the first ones to do it. They just said, we're not going to go to South Africa anymore, and we will not play any teams from South Africa. They canceled them.
Yeah.
And then companies said, we will not invest in anything owned by a South African company. They disinvested. That's what it was called. And nobody could invest in a company that was based out of South Africa. And sponsors were encouraged not to invest money in companies that invested money in South Africa. So South Africa literally was canceled and until it changed. And so it's not necessarily that cancel culture is always bad or good. It can be used in a lot of different ways.
Well, yeah, it's like the Montgomery bus boycott. You were canceling that company because they were corrupt. They did something. They were doing something bad, and you were trying to fix it.
And if you think about it, that worked really well. That was actually a very effective means of doing this.
Hit him in the wallet.
That's where you need to do it. Which brings us to today and the fun of today. And what's changed about all of this today? Well, it's clearly social media.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Every time you kind of get the shivers when you start talking about social media now, because there's just so much involved with it. And the big thing, though, is it allows a lot of people to have it's allowed people to have a voice, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can cause problems. And now what happens is, since we're in this time period where everybody's looking at everybody's past, we saw this at first with comedians, I think.
Yeah.
I think that once you saw this with comedians, you really should have kind of known what was coming, because if comedians can't make jokes because it offends someone, and that's really what this is about. The new cancel culture is about personal offense. Does it offend a group? Does it offend a person? Does it offend a woman? Does it offend a man? Does it offend a
if it's insensitive,
which is defined by whoever.
Yeah, whoever the offendee.
There's no set pattern of what is offensive and what isn't. We some things in society have been accepted. You don't say certain words; they're going to get you in trouble. You don't wear blackface anymore.
No,
don't do it.
No,
you're going to get in trouble. And okay, we got that. That's a rule. Write it down.
Didn't learn that.
The problem is they're adding the rules as fast as possible, and
I know. So then you break a rule that didn't exist yet, but now it does, and then you're done.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Look at John Wayne. Something he said in the 1970s is wrong now.
Yeah.
Now, would you say that it was wrong then?
Probably.
It's one of my favorite words now. It's problematic.
Problematic.
I love that word. In fact, what was once something that conservatives used against progressives in society has been turned completely around. Progressives then used it on conservatives or companies that they didn't like. And now both sides are doing it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely
It's cancel
coming
war
from everywhere.
I saw one, and what musical did you recently watch?
Oh, Hamilton.
Hamilton.
Freaking Hamilton.
Did you like it?
Magic.
Was
It's
it?
magic? All total magic.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh man.
And
It was a
I have a
jolly
thing about musicals. I'm not a big fan. Now, that doesn't count cartoons like Frozen. I got grandkids.
Yeah,
you know.
it's not considered a musical.
Right. I'm
I
talking
mean,
about
not for grown-ups.
I'm talking about really solid musicals like what's a musical that it's been pretty much canceled? Showboat? Yeah.
Showboat.
You can't have that now because it's problematic.
Song of the South.
Song of
That
the-
was a musical.
Well, it was, and you know it's completely canceled. The ride at Disneyland is
it's
going to be
being
changed now.
revamped.
I didn't even realize the ride was associated with Song of the South. I had no idea. I knew about Brer Rabbit and Brer Bear and those stories
Well,
and
it's
stuff
like old
way
stuff.
before
Well, it
I
got
knew
canceled.
about the movie.
This movie never got a DVD release here ever.
Well, but what was weird is when I was a little kid in Kansas City, it was shown. I mean, they advertised it, Song of the South coming this weekend. And you know, everybody, ooh, it was just like Gone with the Wind. It premiered at least once a year at this theater, you know, and everybody raced to it. I didn't realize that theater was, you know, specializing in racist motion pictures.
Yeah,
But
it's problematic.
again, problematic. The new thing that we've seen it. We've seen a bunch of people to make us, Drew Brees got attacked.
Yep.
You know, people were trying to wipe his name off the record books or whatever, you know, just don't shut up, Drew.
Yeah.
And Ellen caught flack because she sat next to George Bush. Liberals came out of the woodwork mad at her. And all of this is, of course, social media. Roseanne Barr said some pretty heinous things. She got herself pretty well
She
canceled.
got actually canceled.
She's still
from
got a
her own
voice,
show.
but it's, from her own show. Jimmy Kimmel looks like he's done.
Yeah, he might be.
And big difference now is what happens is these groups get together in social media and they aim their guns at the brands that sponsor all of these shows. And once the brands pull their money, it's done.
Yeah.
And that's where we are today. But I saw that there was a hashtag, and this made news. I saw it on the news. I said, you got to be kidding. And it was hashtag cancel Hamilton.
Why? Oh, it's because it wasn't tough enough on slavery.
No,
Part of it.
No, well,
I read that.
But here's the thing, and this is the part that got me, and I think this might give us an indication of what's really going on. It turns out that it was one person, Rosa Clemente, a former vice presidential candidate for the Green Party, you know, them.
Oh, yeah.
She says she conjured the hashtag on June 28th. She later linked to a petition seeking to pull the movie and declared, "You cannot simultaneously yell or tweet that hashtag Black Lives Matter while also singing, dancing, and profiting from the celebration of Alexander Hamilton." Her tweet got 16 likes.
Wow.
16.
I'm not on Twitter, but I know that's not a lot.
The petition has yet to receive 400 signatures, yet it made the news.
Wow.
So maybe the problem that we've got is that the news is giving too much validity
Yeah,
to all
they,
of this.
They add too much fuel to all that.
And I'm sure there are people who don't like Hamilton. I'm not saying there aren't. I've been told it's great. In fact, I think it was you
It was me.
just moments ago.
I am that man.
So now we're in this weird, murky place. And as we come to the end of a podcast, what do you think? What have we learned about what do you think the future holds as far as cancel culture goes?
I don't think it's ever going to get any better, just because you have both sides are now so strong against the other side. And since you're getting it from both sides, I don't see the canceling going away. You know, you'll get the liberal progressive side. They're trying to cancel things because of, you know, like if you are someone in the South or even anywhere else in the country and you're just like, you know what? I really like the police. I think we need them to be a functioning society. They're going to go after you because you're bad. On the flip side, if you're conservatives, you're looking out for other stuff. Like right now, they're trying to I see stuff all over social media. They're trying to boycott the NFL. First, it was Kaepernick taking the knee, and now it's because they're going to play a black national anthem before the football games for the first week or two, however long it is.
Yeah. It's that.
So now they're like, we'll see. We'll show them. We're going to boycott the NFL. They're trying to cancel these things because they're showing too many differing opinions from what they have.
Yeah. When really, in the end, it's a game, and I don't care about the opinions of the people playing the game. Maybe we give them too much credit.
I guess we're definitely putting them on a pedestal. People like
They are just athletes, and Hollywood celebrities are no better than anybody else. And from what I can tell, many of them are raving idiots.
Yes.
And so why are we giving them this much weight? What's the word? Gravitas.
And it spreads like wildfire more now than it used to, just because, we don't have the yellow journalism anymore, but we have social media,
which is
where your news is based on a meme that you saw.
Right. And people get, even something as simple as, starting school, just people start screaming about masks.
Everywhere. Like, I want to go back to school, but my kids ain't wearing a mask. Okay. Well, what if they have to? They ain't going to school. Then you're going to teach them?
No.
No, I got to work. Okay. I get that.
I watch this cancel culture thing just grow and grow, and it's sort of like, and the gulf between the two sides gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And as a history teacher, I know for me, it's pretty concerning. I'm older though, so I do have the knowledge that I'll be dead before it all blows up, I hope. And then my kids will have to worry about it. So,
yeah.
But it's sort of like two armies on either side of this big divide, sniping at each other and occasionally picking one off.
Every now and then.
Eventually you are going to run out of people.
Yes.
And I really, truly still to this day believe the vast majority of Americans don't care about any of it, that they're just trying to work their jobs, pay their bills, raise their kids,
and just live life.
I have a feeling that social media amplifies a bunch of disaffected people who are really good at using social media. I think a lot of people think they have more of an effect than they actually do. They give themselves more credit than
there are people that they just thrive on it. They need it.
And conflict. People thrive on conflict.
They have to stir the pot, and they have to feel like they are a voice. Like, even in this little, very small community, you have these people who are trying to rise to the upper echelons of it.
Yeah.
And they need that attention. They need that influence to where what they say is going to mean something.
And if somebody does something they don't like, they want to ruin them. They don't just want want them to just shut up. They want to take their ability to make money away, get them fired,
canceled.
And it's kind of a scary thing. It's weird to think that there are people who want to ruin other people, completely remove them, erase them, because it sounds an awful lot like what Stalin did. If you screwed up, that's one thing, but he killed your whole family.
Yes. And he photoshopped you out of pictures.
And I'm seeing more and more stories where one person screws up and then their wife or husband loses their job too.
Yeah.
They weren't part of it. Doesn't matter. You're associated with them.
Yep.
And that's frightening. It's terrifying. And we're canceling these people because
of a difference of opinion half the time, and that used to be what people liked about this country.
Now,
you could have progress if you had different opinions, not if you try to cancel them.
Now, that being said, I don't have a problem with society coming down on somebody who deserves it.
Yeah.
I don't. That's the market. The market will decide. The market used to decide. But today the market's skewed because of the weaponization of social media.
Yeah.
And you can't believe it. It's too much. I guess that's what we've learned. We've learned that we don't know where this thing is going.
Yeah.
I would really like it to stop.
Yeah. It's been a rough 100 years.
It's been a rough year.
Yeah. We've concentrated that entire 100 years into this year.
And I think we can all agree that 2020 is still weird. It's been a day.
It has.
And I enjoyed having you here. I hope to have you back again as well.
Oh, anytime. And
everybody out there, I want to say a couple of things real quick before I wrap it up fully. Thanks everybody who listened to the first podcast. I was honored, actually. I was surprised. And I've got a phone number if you want to leave a message that I might play on the air. The new phone number for Long in the Boot is 337-502-9011. Again, 502-9011. And you can leave a nice little message there. If you leave a really nasty message, don't leave your name because I will play that on the air. And so there you go. Again, the website is www.longintheboot.com. and email longintheboot@gmail.com. And I am working on the website. I'm doing it slow. I got all kinds of things going on right now, so it's just the way it is. I always look for a quote to kind of wrap things up. One of my favorite authors is a guy named Robert Heinlein, and he has a character whose name, coincidentally enough, is Lazarus Long.
Whoa.
Yeah, and Lazarus Long has been changed to where he's lived many lifetimes. And he has seen things happen over and over again. And he's especially has seen things happen because of opinions, feelings, all kinds of things. And he snaps at one point and he says, what are the facts? Again and again and again, what are the facts? Shun wishful thinking. Ignore divine revelation. Forget what the stars foretell. Avoid opinion. Care not what the neighbors think. Never mind the unguessable verdict of history. What are the facts, and to how many decimal places? You pilot always into an unknown future. Facts are your single clue. Always get the facts. Which I think sums it up pretty nicely.
Yes.
Well, say good day, Bryant.
Au revoir.
And goodbye, everybody. Have a real nice day. See you in a fortnight.